Today we're going to be looking at a very interesting case. This was a case that I initially looked at and I knew I had to make a video about this case because it was so interesting and so unique in a number of ways that you're gonna see a little bit later in the video. And so this took place in 2016 in the state of Texas, in a small city called Midlothian, which is actually part of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. And so this wasn't somewhere in the middle of nowhere. This was actually in the suburbs of a relatively large city, a relatively large, well-known city. And this, in my view, is an important fact that you should make a note of as we're going to be discussing this case a little bit later in the video. And this case actually has to do with the murder of Missy Beavers under very interesting circumstances. Even though the police has a lot of evidence, this case has not been solved. And so let's take a deeper dive into this case and let's talk about what exactly happened. And even though this case is still unsolved, let's take a look at some of the suspects, let's take a look at some of the evidence, and let's try to make sense of everything that happened and try to take a stab at it and see who could have done it. And so on Sunday evening, April the 15th, 2016, Missy Beavers, a stay-at-home wife and a mother of 3 daughters, had scheduled an early morning fitness class the following day in a nearby church. Missy was a fitness fanatic and an instructor and had led many fitness classes in the area. But as fate would have it, that morning would be very different than any of the previous mornings. Missy's body would be discovered by one of her fitness students dead in a pool of blood with various injuries all over. So let's get started and try to get to the bottom of this very unique and interesting case. And so we are transporting ourselves to the great state of Texas, to the city of Midlothian, located 25 miles southwest of Dallas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Missy and Brandon Beavers were living with their 3 daughters, ages 15, 13, and 8. And just like with any marriage, their marriage had its ups and downs, and it was rumored the couple was experiencing financial as well as personal issues that were putting a strain on their marriage. The husband, Brandon, had a regular job, and Missy was a stay-at-home mom who was keeping herself busy by being involved with fitness. And Missy was very much into fitness, so this wasn't somebody who ran on weekends or went to the gym a couple of times a week or even once a week. She was actually somebody I would call like a fitness nut, a fitness fanatic in the best sense of that word, somebody who loved fitness, somebody who felt that fitness was a way to a healthier life. And as a result, she also led a lot of these fitness classes around the area. And this specific fitness class was supposed to take place in a church in the early morning of that Monday. And so let's fast forward ourselves to the Monday of April 16, 2016. Missy had arrived early that morning and began preparing for her fitness class. Unfortunately, there would be no fitness class that morning. One of the students who had arrived early that morning had discovered her instructor laying on the floor in a pool of blood. Later, the police released the following video. The injuries causing Missy's death were believed to be caused by the object that was in the possession by the suspect in the video. And so what exactly happened? Let's try to kind of make sense of the whole situation. Let's take a look at the suspects. Let's see who could have done it. And let's try to figure out why this case is still unsolved 5 years after it had happened. And so as you can see by the video, there's an individual walking around the church in the early hours of Monday, and this was believed to have happened around 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning on that Monday. And so initially the police thought that this was a burglary gone wrong, but after the surveillance video was released, it became very clear that this was something else entirely. Now let's take a look at some of the suspects that the police initially thought could have committed this crime, and let's try to figure out who had a stronger motive and who was, more motivated to actually kill this wonderful woman. And so while the police has been trying to solve this puzzle for more than 5 years now, there have been several suspects that the police initially questioned but ultimately released without even arresting. And so the first suspect that the police initially questioned, and this is very, very common with situations where there's a homicide or something that even relates to a homicide, are the people closest to the victim. In this case, this was the husband. And so the police questioned her husband, Brandon, but they realized that he actually had a very, very strong alibi because he was in the state of Mississippi that weekend on a work-related fishing trip. And this alibi was actually very strong because there were other people that saw him there. They confirmed that he was indeed there, and he was ruled out as a suspect. The second suspect that the police questioned was the father-in-law, and this was Brandon's father. And he also had a fairly strong alibi. He claimed he was in California at that time with his wife, traveling around the state, looking at various things, on vacation, just relaxing, hanging out. And the police even got his cell phone records, and the cell phone records even confirmed that, his cell phone was out there in California at this time. So in fact, it was pretty convenient that both the husband as well as the father-in-law were out of state when this heinous crime had happened. Now, there were also a couple of other suspects that the police questioned. It was actually rumored that Missy was flirting with another man on LinkedIn at the time leading to her death. And so the police questioned the wife of this person that she was allegedly talking with, and they also released her as well. And last but not least, there was also another man that had lived in the area that the police had also questioned, but ultimately they also released him as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the suspects, specifically the husband and the father-in-law. Now the husband, even though that he's the closest to the victim, and in a lot of these cases the husband is typically one of the first people that the police speak to, because maybe the marriage is not going well, maybe the husband, perhaps he had an affair with somebody else, and so there's typically always a motive on the husband's part in any marriage, in any of these situations. But ultimately the husband was ruled out. But the father-in-law, this is where it gets a little interesting, because there's a couple of situations, a couple of aspects related to the father-in-law that kind of make you question this whole thing. The first thing was that it wasn't truly proved. I mean, the father-in-law did not have as strong of an alibi compared to the father, right? I mean, he claimed he was in California. His wife confirmed he was in California. His phone pinged there. But, was he really there? It's not really clear whether other people had seen him there. And so when it comes to his alibi in California, the fact that he was driving around California with his wife, he doesn't have as strong of an alibi as his son, Missy's husband Brandon. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is that not long after the murder, it was discovered that he brought an article of clothing. Maybe it was a towel or an actual article of clothing to the dry cleaning because it has some blood on it. And last but not least, the father-in-law also has a very, very similar walk that the suspect in the video surveillance had. And so if you take a look at a video side by side, you will see that the father-in-law has a very, very similar type of walk. They both walk with a certain gait as the suspect, the main suspect in the video surveillance. So that was another thing. And actually a lot of people, they believe that the husband-in-law actually was the one who committed this crime, even though he was out of town, allegedly out of town, but because there's a strong similarity with his walk to the actual suspect in the video. Now, in terms of the actual article of clothing, whatever it was that was brought to the dry cleaning, it was later established that the blood on this article of clothing was actually not human blood. It was actually animal blood. And in fact, he claimed that his dog, their dog, his and his wife's little Chihuahua, got into a fight with a bigger dog, and this dog got a little injured, and they had to bring this dog to the veterinarian, and that is why this specific article of clothing had some blood on.
Double XL shirt, just listing. That's your shirt. The dry cleaner listed your shirt with the blood stains on it as a women's.
Well, my wife's white shirt had blood stains on it too. So both of us had blood stains on her shirt and mine. So because it.
So there are two shirts of blood on it.
Yeah.
The warrant only listed one.
The warrant only listed one. Where's the other shirt?
The dry cleaners.
So the dry cleaner calls and says there's blood on.
I don't know what I don't know the conversation between the cleaners and the police station. Okay, I don't know that conversation.
But you're saying there's blood on two shirts.
There's two shirts that's got blood on. Okay.
And then, Randy, even though it's brought you this attention, would you say that you're glad that they're looking so closely?
You better
at all
believe
of
it.
this?
You better believe it. You better believe it. If they weren't, they wouldn't be doing their job. Okay, so. By them doing this, it tells me that they're being diligent and doing their job on any tiny little whatever comes across is being looked at. And it should be. So that's great.
Do you have a photo of that Chihuahua? I know I keep a lot of photos of my dog.
No. My wife would have, but I don't have one. But but it's just little.
That was
like
that dog was her. That dog was a very precious animal to her.
Yeah, it was.
Very.
And so that was the reason why he brought this piece of clothing to the dry cleaning, so that they can clean it up and it could be as good as new. And there was also something else. Around 500 meters from the church, on the exact same street, on the other side where the church was, a store surveillance camera captured the suspicious car entering the parking lot, turning off the headlights, circling around the parking lot, and then being parked under the street light for anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes before turning back the headlights on and exiting the parking lot. And this supposedly happened about several hours, maybe 1 to 2 hours before Missy's murders. And so there has been a lot of speculation. What car was this? Was this car actually, linked to the murder or not? And while the police actually, discovered the make and model of the car, and this was actually a Nissan Altima, the year being 2010 to 2013, the police were never able to actually discover this car and actually talk to the driver and figure out what was going on, whether this was related to the actual murder or not. And so now that you kind of understand the specifics of this case, unfortunately, there's really not much more evidence. There has been not many more suspects, even though the police does consider this to be still an active open case. Let's sit back and let's try to figure out who exactly was responsible, okay? Was it the husband? Was it the father-in-law? Was it somebody else? Was it a jealous wife? Was it, maybe the person that was that she was allegedly flirting on LinkedIn? Or maybe it was the driver of that car that was seen a couple of hours before in the parking lot. One of the most important questions is, was this a man or a woman? Now, who exactly was this? And so after looking at this video several times, checking out some of the the message boards, just kind of letting this whole thing seep in, just kind of thinking about it, I believe this was actually a woman dressed in a full SWAT gear. And my view, kind of just looking at this video, looking at this person walking back and forth, this to me looks like a middle-aged woman, a woman who is between 45 years old to maybe 50 years old. And Missy Beavers was actually 45 years old, so it could have been somebody closer to her age. And it just, in my mind, it seems like this was a woman. Okay, why? Just the fact, the way she's walking, the way this person is walking, the way that they're hitting the glass, breaking the glass with the hammer. It didn't appear to me that a man would strike the glass with the hammer in this exact same way. So all of these mannerisms, the body language, it kind of hit me that this was actually, could have been a woman. Now, of course, it could have been a man, trying to act like a woman, or it could have been somebody with, somebody who had some sort of an injury, and as a result, they were walking this way. But just kind of looking at it, from a distance, letting this whole video just kind of seep in, it just seems to me that this was a middle-aged woman. At least to me, that's what it seems like. Let me know in the comments below who you believe who this person was in the video. Do you believe that this was a man, or was this a woman? Because it seems to me that this was a middle-aged woman. It wasn't even a young woman. It doesn't even seem like a young person. It seems like somebody who is 45 plus, 45 maybe to 55, 45 to 50, around that age. Now, when it comes to her husband, I do not believe that the husband was responsible. He does have a very, very strong alibi, which was confirmed by several people in Mississippi. So he wasn't there. He just wasn't there. Now, let's talk a little bit about the father-in-law. The father-in-law, a lot of people believed he was actually responsible, or at least he knows somebody who was responsible. A lot of people believe that he was, either directly responsible, or he may know more than he's actually, telling people. Now, what is my viewpoint on this? I do not believe that it was the father-in-law. I mean, he says he was in California. I honestly don't think he was actually in Texas. If the police were able to check that fact, if his wife confirmed that, if his phone was, pinged there, I actually don't believe he was actually in Texas. I don't really believe he was responsible. Now, when it comes to, the article of clothing, whether it was a towel or something else with some blood on it, this was actually something that was proven by analyzing the blood's DNA. And it was confirmed that this was not human blood. And, they had a dog. The dog got into some fight with a bigger dog, as, very, very commonly happens with these smaller dogs. And so a lot of people that have dogs, or at least observe dogs, can probably attest to that. And so I don't think this was blood, this was Missy's blood or anything like that. In terms of the walk, in terms of the gait, how they have the similar walk, I think that a lot of people can be walking like this. I don't think that this actually proves anything. And also, it's important to point out that physically this person was on the shorter side. It was believed that this person was somewhere around 5'3" to 5'4", anywhere between 5 feet and 3 inches to 5 feet and 6 inches. And the father-in-law was definitely on the shorter side. The husband was a little bit taller. It was believed he was around 6 feet, so he definitely wasn't the person. But the father-in-law, he was the same, kind of the same build, the same height, the same, he had the same walk, but I still don't believe it was him. It's just my gut feeling, it wasn't him. I believe this was definitely not a robbery gone wrong. This was definitely not a burglary gone wrong. And this probably was somebody who was just walking around and waiting for Missy to get there. Maybe it was one of her students that had known that she was gonna, have a class in the church that Monday morning. It was also believed that she was supposed to have that class the day before or a couple of days before, but it was actually raining really, really heavily the days before, and as a result she rescheduled the class for the following Monday morning. And so my gut feeling is this definitely was not a robbery or a burglary gone wrong. This person was actually there on a specific objective. They knew what they were doing, they knew what they were looking for, and they put on that SWAT gear, that SWAT uniform. because they knew that this church had, all these surveillance cameras all over the place, simply because they've been there before, and so they knew exactly what to expect. They knew who was going to be there. They also knew that there were, no security guards, and that Missy was going to be there all by herself. Now, this is another very interesting thing, right? She's going there all alone in the middle of the night, right? She arrived somewhere around 4 o'clock in the morning, and I get that this is a small town, everybody knows each other, but still, it's a little bit eerie to arrive that early, in the middle of the night, to a place where, nobody would help you out if somebody had a vendetta after you. And so the other thing about this case is that the weeks leading to the murder, it was believed or rumored that Missy wasn't herself. Maybe she was getting death threats. Maybe somebody, wanted bad things to happen to her. Maybe this was connected to the messages that she was exchanging with another individual, or maybe she was even having a full-blown affair. And we actually do not know. I don't think this was confirmed by anywhere, but if this was confirmed, then, then she probably felt, or maybe she was getting some messages, maybe she was getting even some threats that something bad was gonna happen. And so even with these threats, even with these messages, to arrive, that early without anybody else is a little strange for me. Now, I'm saying this because I'm somebody that has grown up in a big city with its own share of crime, but I do understand that this was a small city in Texas, outside of a bigger city where, crime is not a very common occurrence. So perhaps, having something like this in mind, then I can understand why she would arrive that early without any security. Now, last but not least, let's talk about the car that was seen on the video surveillance on the same street just opposite of the church where the crime happened. Is there any connection with the car kind of, driving around under suspicious circumstances, entering the parking lot, just circling around, and then just standing under the street light for like 5 minutes? Was this in any way connected to the murder? My personal opinion that it was not. I believe it was somebody else. Maybe this person got lost, and that is why they circled around. Maybe they entered the parking lot, then they wanted to leave the parking lot, and then they realized that, hey, there's a street light, it's safe, they can, stand under the street light, maybe make some calls, or maybe look at a paper map of, wherever they were going. And so the thing about to understand is that the road they were on, this was a very kind of a major road. And that road, from that road, you can get pretty much anywhere. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. On one hand, the person that could have done it, they could have, arrived on that road, entered the church, and then, go somewhere else. But, the flip side of this is that this person could have just been driving through Texas or through, the city with no relation, with no connection to the city at all. And so that is something important to understand. I have read that people have actually said that the reason this car stopped under the street light is so that the light would reflect off their windshield and nobody would see the identity of this person. Yeah, that could be true. But I also believe they parked right under the street light, so that maybe they were looking for something in the car, maybe they wanted to look at a map. It's really hard to say, but my gut feeling is that this person was not related in any way to the crime. That is just my gut feeling. Let me know in the comments below if you feel that this is not the case, if you feel that this person was somehow related or not. And so right now I want to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room. This is a small town. This is a town where everybody kind of knows each other. So I am very surprised that nobody has been able to figure out who was actually the person in the SWAT gear, because unless this person did it and didn't tell anybody else, it's hard to believe that this person might have told somebody, maybe in a bar or maybe in a more private setting, and nobody has come forward and actually tell the police that they believe that this person was responsible or that person was responsible. Because even though we do not know who exactly this person was, we can't see the face of this person. We know their physical structure, we know their height, we know the way they were walking, and we know that this is a small town where, you know, everybody kind of talks to everybody. Rumors travel fairly fast. It's not a huge city like New York or Chicago where this could have been just about anybody. This is a small town, so it's still surprising to me that even though this was, you know, a small town and there's some characteristics of this person that are available in the video surveillance, as well as their relationship to Missy, this case has not been cracked in 5 years. And so for me, this is a big, big mystery. And that is all we have with this case. We have the video, we have the physical characteristics of this person, but we have no idea who this was. So we have the FBI investigating this case, we have the Texas Rangers investigating this case, as well as the local police investigating this case, but unfortunately, they still do not know who did it. And so at the time of the recording of the video, this case is still ongoing, it's still active. The police is still actively investigating this case. And so if you know anybody who could be responsible, you know exactly where to call. And so this brings us to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below who you believe could be responsible. Let me know what you think about this whole case. Me personally, the first time I saw this video, I realized that this is a video I will never be able to unsee. And I believe you will probably have the same reaction once you've seen this video. I have seen a lot of surveillance videos, and this video is definitely a little bit on the eerie side, and I think you will agree. So thank you again for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what you believe happened here. Let me know if you have any theories. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel for more similar content. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in a future video.